I presume you're here in order to learn of Magecraft. I'll have you know, there's no room for the weak-willed in this course, and despite your best efforts, the sorcery of our time is but a fraction of what it once was in the Age of Gods. Much of the craft is established through pedigree, and the culture of mages is riddled with deception and moral depravity. That said, if you insist, I shall do my best to educate you in this miserable, yet fascinating world.
In our previous lesson, I covered the magecraft practiced by the Ainsworth family, including their use of class cards. Publicly, they sought their holy grail, Miusakatsuki, hoping to save their dying world. More specifically, Darius yearned to open Pandora's box and give rise to a new world not even accounted for by Akasha. Many mages generally aim to reach the root, not defy it, so the Ainsworth family stands out in this regard. It has me thinking that we shouldn't merely learn the whats and hows of magecraft, but we should also address why mages dedicate themselves as they do. Thus, for today's lesson, I wish to speak of mages and their varying motivations for learning the craft. Consider this an opportunity to reflect on what we've learned so far. Let it spark your ambition for lessons to come. As I said before, it is a general goal for most mages to one day reach Akasha, the root of all existence. By doing so, mages have the opportunity to obtain true magic. Following in the footsteps of mages like Zelrech, the Ainsburns, and the Aozaki, true magic is considered the pinnacle of magecraft, and any mage seeking greatness will no doubt covet the root in some form. Oftentimes, it's not even the true magic itself that entices mages, but rather the sheer prestige it comes with. Tokiomi Tosaka, for instance, seeks the root as a matter of principle. As pupils of Zelrech, it is no surprise that the Tosakas hope to reach the root, but their reason for doing so has changed slightly over time. Nagato Tosaka once allied with the Ainsburns to help them retrieve the magic of Heaven's Feel. They had lofty ambitions of improving the world with this magic, but following the initial Holy Grail War in Fuyuki, that once collaborative effort is now a competition. The root means nothing to Tokiomi personally, but in terms of his legacy, it is a natural pursuit. It's as logical for him as it was to send Sakura to another family so that both his daughters could practice magecraft. It's not just a matter of bloodline, though. The Yggdrasilania family, which have been struggling with its mage birthright, decided to separate itself from the Mages Association and pursue the root via their own methods. Rather than having one bloodline that produced ever more talented mages, the Yggdrasilania formed a clan by absorbing other struggling families. Through diversity, rather than purity, the clan still covets the root, even going so far as stealing the Greater Grail to do so. To some, the idea of reaching the root is boring and fruitless. As idealistic as true magic seems, if it doesn't grant any immediate material gain, then why bother? The heroic spirit Gilgamesh certainly feels this way about Tokiomi's ambition for the root. To him, reaching the root for the sake of prestige lacks humanity, emotion, and entertainment. As such, Gilgamesh, one of the strongest servants a mage can summon, would prefer to serve a master who pursues the Grail to satisfy more material and emotional needs. In other words, Gilgamesh favors mages like Kirei Kotomine. Initially, Kirei learned magecraft as part of his training for the Holy Church, and he became a master in the Fourth Grail War to help out Tokiomi. He claimed not to have any desires of his own, but Gilgamesh could sense that he did indeed have dormant wishes so twisted and sinful he could hardly embrace them consciously. Kirei relished in tragedy, outright enjoying disasters like the Great Fire in Fuyuki. He would hide these morbid curiosities while performing his role as a church supervisor, planning in the long run to witness the birth of Angra Mainyu. In this regard, mages seeking to sate their personal material needs can prove to be more dangerous than those with more idealistic goals. It is because of this that we have mages like Kiritsugu and Shiro Emiya, who embrace magecraft as a means of fighting other mages. Kiritsugu's intimate knowledge of mages and their culture helps him exploit their weaknesses. For him, using magecraft against other mages is simply a matter of fighting fire with fire. Shiro has a similar yet purer goal. To him, Magecraft is just a means to an end in protecting others as a hero of justice. It's a tool that can be used for good or evil, basing that morality on his own civilian experiences rather than mage culture. This is a trend among young mages who lack a traditional education in the craft. One's obligations as a mage will often conflict with one's desires as a human being, and those who have avoided being indoctrinated wind up being more in touch with modern society. Tokiomi's daughter, Rin, is a brilliant example. Her parental tutelage was cut short when Tokiomi died in the Fourth Grail War. Instead, her guardian became the detestable Kirei, sparking in her a sense of rebellion. She retains an ingrained obligation to win the Grail War and reach the root on behalf of the Tosaka lineage, but she's honestly more concerned with proving she can do it. She wants to live up to expectations, but this conflicts with her compassion and her desire to embrace Sakura as a sister. Call it her humanity, or just naivete, but Rin is often reluctant to do what is considered as proper for a mage, such as killing otherwise innocent civilians. The same can be said for Ophelia Famersalone from Chaldea's Team A. Her family was hell-bent on developing a jewel-ranked mystic eye, subjecting her to a series of agonizing operations to boost her potential as a mage. Thus, while she showed great talent at the clock tower, Ophelia suffered immense trauma, and her lack of self-esteem ultimately crippled her. It is a tragic example of how the cruel, inhuman nature of many mages comes at a cost. Because of this, mages who retain a hopeful spirit tend to stand out. This can be seen in Justice Liedrich von Einsburn. Her ancestors once obtained and lost the third magic, Heaven's Feel, which materializes the soul. The Einsburns seek to regain that lost magic while feeling entitled to it. Justice was unique in that she saw the potential in Heaven's Feel to help humanity transcend their hatred and suffering by existing as materialized souls. Not only did she covet the root in search of true magic, she also saw that magic as a tool to improve the human condition. It's worth noting that Amakusa Shiro Tokisada, despite being an incarnated heroic spirit, fought for a similar outcome. Both Amakusa and Justice saw materializing the soul as a form of salvation. Of course, such a feat would only save the currently living generation of humans. Those who have already died would be excluded. The Buddhist mage Soren Araya sought to focus specifically on these fallen souls. After living for over 300 years, Araya aimed to reach the root in order to give meaning to people's deaths. He cared less about true magic and was more interested in the root's Akashic records, which would allow him to investigate the lives of each and every person who has died. By finding their happiest or most profound moments, he felt he could bring meaning to otherwise pointless deaths. Mages can be very creative when it comes to imagining utopias. Kirstario Votim, hoping to save mankind from death and cruelty, arrived at a completely different conclusion. Rather than seeking the root for a true magic capable of preserving the soul, he instead planned to borrow power from an alien god to return mankind to the age of gods. By ascending all mortals into gods, he felt mankind would eventually forget the need to fight one another. Other mages, such as Cornelius Alba, have rather petty desires in comparison. He dedicated himself to the craft almost exclusively out of a desire to best his self-proclaimed rival, Toko Aozaki. In other words, he wanted to prove himself. Unlike Rin Tosaka, however, he lacked enough humanity to imagine a future beyond that point. Equally petty is Atram Galliasta, an arrogant mage with a lovely harem of beautiful concubines. Underestimating the craft, he entered the Fifth Holy Grail War hoping to attain wealth. Mind you, wealth is not inherently bad to wish for. The mage Marisbury Animesphere, for instance, once wished upon the Grail for the necessary funds to construct Chaldea, an organization instrumental in saving humanity from potential threats. The same can be said regarding the Atlas Institute, whose alchemists are constantly predicting doomsday events for the planet. These mages show how magecraft and technology needn't oppose each other in a modern setting. The Pelagor family prefers to pursue both magecraft and technology in tandem, establishing the Pelagor Corporation. They manufacture computers, phones, and video games, which helps fund their magecraft research. This has allowed them to practice the art of shell projection. They are forward-thinking mages who clearly have a desire to preserve the craft as humans move further into a technological age. Innovation is often a key feature of mages without an established pedigree. Waver Velvet, for instance, naively wished to prove that mages could succeed even without having a long-established bloodline. By overcoming his own weaknesses, Waver works to teach and inspire future mages on modern magecraft theories. Modern thinking proves critical when the Earth's mana supply dries out. The very concept of magecraft is forced to change as mages turn to Spiritron hacking, continuing the craft through the Spiritron world of the Moon Cell. Many of these mages learn Spiritron hacking in order to survive, taking shelter in the virtual environment of Seraph after the Earth proves uninhabitable. Taking advantage of the Earth's sorry state, the Harvey conglomerate took over most of the planet, establishing an uncontested empire. Hoping to conquer not just the Earth, but also the Moon Cell, the family sent its heirs, Leonardo and Julius, to win the Moon Cell Holy Grail War. While the family's reign is no doubt tyrannical, Leo takes his efforts as a mage seriously, genuinely hoping to guide humanity forward as a monarch. On this more political front, the self-aware AI Twice H. Beastman seeks to harness the Moon Cell automaton for perpetuating warfare, believing that humanity actually advances most during times of strife and conflict. Other mages couldn't care less for the state of humanity's future, instead content with glorifying the past. Mages of the Wandering Sea, for instance, concern themselves with mages of old during the Age of Gods. They obsess over this era to the point where they straight up ignore the outside world, even as it deteriorates or comes under fire from emerging threats. In contrast, there are mages who are only concerned with the future, hoping to discover new innovations expected to occur long after their deaths. To overcome this, they seek immortality. Both the mages Michael Roa Valdemyong and Fabro Rowan find themselves becoming dead apostles to extend their lifespans. They are determined to experience the future, even if it means losing track of their original personalities. For some, however, immortality is a curse. CL, an executor of the church's burial agency, uses magecraft in order to slay Roa and make her body mortal once again. Clearly, not everyone wants the same thing. Of course, we can't forget about Kairi Shishigo, a man who is incapable of fathering a biological heir. Even his attempts to pass his magic crest onto an adopted daughter ended in the poor girl's death. Betting on a miracle, Kairi fights as a mage in the Great Grail War of Trefus in order to finally obtain a successor. Lastly, there tends to be a certain irony in the world of magecraft. Mages seek power as a matter of principle, yet lack the humanity needed to appreciate that power. Thus, to an ordinary human, such power may not seem that great. If magecraft does not bring the world happiness, then why pursue it so adamantly? This sentiment is encapsulated when Shiki Ryogi, a demon hunter manipulated from birth to have the origin of nothingness, decides to entrust her consciousness to separate personalities. Arguably, Shiki is the most powerful being alive, connected to and essentially one with the root itself. Despite this, her base personality, her void self, has no personal use for such power. After experiencing the world vicariously through her other personalities, the only time she considers using her connection to the root is for the sake of Mikia Kokuto, an ordinary human she fell in love with. This young man is offered the kind of opportunity most mages can only dream of, and yet he declares he is happy enough just getting to be with Shiki for the rest of his mortal life. It's almost as if the root is only truly accessible to those who have no need for it. In summation, while mages commonly pursue the root as the pinnacle of magecraft, that idealistic goal is not as universal as one might expect. Mages are humans, complete with their own perks and flaws. Individualized desires emerge, and to attain them, magecraft merely becomes a means to that end. Some mages use the craft to protect the world, while others seek to destroy it. Some mages abandon their humanity to reach lofty goals, while others find that burden at odds with their compassion toward others. Even among mages striving to improve the world, their differing visions of that ideal utopia conflict with one another. Nearly all mages learn the craft to obtain one goal or another, but it's just as important to consider the ordinary things we take for granted. Hopefully, this has helped you reflect on your own goals. Honoring the spirit of this lesson, I would once again like to ask you for suggestions on what to cover in my next lesson. Tap into your curiosity and unveil your heart's deepest desires. Before I go ahead and roll the credits, I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, C. James Torley, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, Otaku Mom, Jens Ballman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Freebrick, Cosmonaut, RNG or Shuffles 1498, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Johnny Tsunami, Link Pendrago, Caitlin P, Vladimir Rovna, Succubus Sakura, and SF Giants fan Mike. Thank you all so much. Thanks for watching!
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to OtakuDaiKun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all of our anime discussion, lore, or Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or our YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like exclusive vids and early access.
As always,
celebrate your fandom!